Hannah, what are you doing? My best.
Okay. 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 My mic's still in place? Wait, I have a mirror. Yes. Bear with me. I'm on a lot of cold medicine right now, so the rant is going to be even rantier. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm in a quarantine, and just so you know, this is the setup we've got. It's time. I'm fucking doing it. This is the McKettricks of Texas, Tate. This is not my book. This is a book my dear friend Chloe has lent me. This book came into Chloe's possession by way of their dead grandmother. And when their grandmother died, they found this on their shelf and they thought, Grandma? Grandma? And so now I have to think, Grandma? Grandma? Get better taste in books. Mostly. I'm sorry. Disclaimer, I'm going to be ranting and raving about this book a little bit. By far not the worst book. It's silly. It's cliche. It's tropey. It's, all in all, it's fine. I think I gave it like a 3 stars. It's fine. We're just having fun here. I'm going to exaggerate. I'm going to hyperbolize. For the bit. For the bit, mostly. I'm coming into this with receipts because I think resources are important, and also because some of this is buck wild, and you need to see it for yourself. That is a threat. I know either books are wilder, but I'm still excited to have a goof and a gap on behalf of my friends. So, join me, shall you? Take a seat. Pull up a chair. I'm fucking sick and I'm on a lot of medication, so let's do this. Okay. Disclaimer for my mother specifically, this book contains content of sexual nature and language of mature nature. That's mostly just me, though. And disclaimer for the vibes. All in all, this is a cheesy romance. It's not a perfect book, but it's certainly not the worst. So, we've got our characters, and I've created a little tree. Where I'm going to put that? I don't know. Somewhere, for sure. So, we've got Tate, which is a POV. We've got Libby, which is a POV. These two are high school flings, but they've fallen apart. This is Hannah from the future. We're looping back around. We're doing the family tree. Tate and Libby, they're in love. Yeah, I remember that. Great. On Libby's side, we've got her mom Marva and Remington dad, which is dead. He's dead. Libby's siblings are Paige and Julie. Yeah, Paige is a nurse who dated Austin the summer after high school. Julie is the middle child who's a high school teacher, and her son's Calvin. Tate's brother, he's got 2 of them. Austin, which is a bull rider, he's injured in the prologue. And Garrett, which page 14 gives us all we need to know, I suppose. Nothing scared him except commitment to one woman. Cool. And their parents died in a car crash. They are rich. They own a ranch, which is called the Silver Spur. Here's some more fun facts. Their house is more than 18,000 square feet. Each brother has his own wing of the house. Typically it's called a house, but it is finally called a mansion on page 214. And it says, page 16, we've got Austin's beat-up red truck, one of several vehicles with his name on the title. They also have a housekeeper. So, and you wouldn't guess that these 2 trees are going to combine. No one could ever see that happening. That's not a common trope in many of my favorite books. Okay, so pre-book plot, here's the high school timeline, which I also made. So they were in high school, they were dating, they had sex together in the back seat of his dad's car. They're on and off again through high school. Tate goes to law school. Libby's dad is diagnosed with cancer. Tate tells Libby that Cheryl is pregnant, so did he cheat on her? Was this during an off period? Very unclear. Libby's dad dies from the diagnosis. Twins are born, and now it's 6 years later, and that's where we are. Great, okay. So he's not, okay, so sorry, so he was married, but now he's not anymore. So you've got Tate, wow. Okay. So you've got Tate, and he has 2 daughters. They're twins. They're 6 years old. They're Ava and Audrey. Their names don't matter. The divorce agreement is 50-50 custody. So they get 1 week with each parent, but they both have to stay in Blue River. If they leave the small town, then they forfeit custody of the girls. Cheryl claims, that's the ex-wife, that his brother Austin seduced her one night in Vegas while she and Tate were still married. So we begin with Tate's point of view. And this is the prologue. His younger brother Austin is bull riding. Things go wrong. He goes to the hospital. He flies out to the hospital to go to be with his brother, and his brother tells him, I need you to know I didn't sleep with your ex-wife. Just in case I die, you need to know that, dude. Then we go into the first chapter, which is the twins' birthday party. Cheryl wants to sign them up for a beauty pageant. That's the ex-wife. And Tate says no. And you know what? I'll back him on that. That's valid. They're fucking 6 years old. Keep them out of there. That's not for them. Okay, my note here says first sentence of Libby POV makes no sense. Great, can't wait to find out what that sentence is. Tate McKettrick, Libby Remington thought, watching as he drew his truck and horse trailer to a stop in front of her shop, got out and strode purposefully toward the door. Of course. So Tate McKettrick, she's thinking, sure, okay, so Tate McKettrick watching as he drew out of his horse. Wait, Libby thought watching as he drew out of his horse. Okay, so Tate McKettrick got out and strode purposely toward the door. That was unnecessary. Nobody needed that many commas. That was dumb. Now, I will say, this book was published in 2010, and it includes a lot of ecological impact awareness. I will give it that. Some examples include biodegradable cup mentioned. That's cool. It mentions that the amount of hairspray used would add another hole to the ozone. The kid's play castle is made out of recycled plastic. And a plot point is that her vehicle has too much exhaust and has to be fixed. Y'all know where I grew up. You've seen the videos. So the sentence, huge phallic symbol of a truck, that one was good for me. I did like that, personally. That one was good. I don't think I ever said this, by the way. Welcome to the pit at Arrow Rock Lyceum Theater. I can be here alone. And loudly. I can be here loudly. Welcome to my domain! So at this point in the book, I was convinced that this was smut. Libby's horny on main and angry. Those are two things that usually go into a smut plot. But upon further reading and consideration, I don't think this is smut. I think this is just poorly written romance that has a couple sex scenes in it. And we'll get more into that. Will that have changed my opinions on this book? Perhaps. Maybe. We'll never know now. At this point, I have a note that says, oh no, Libby needs a home for 2 foster dogs. Good thing she just invited Tate to adopt them for his daughters as a birthday present. So Garrett, one of the brothers, gives the girls a giant plastic castle for their birthday. Austin gives them each a horse, so then Tate feels like he has to do better than them, to show off to his own daughters. Very confusing, so he calls Libby and requests that she bring the dogs to his house immediately. She needs to come bring them. His problem is now her problem. Don't like that. That's not a great look, Tate. So she comes out to the house. First of all, don't adopt 2 dogs together. I recognize this is 2010. A lot of the research didn't exist. But there is research now that is showing that's a bad idea. They will bond more with each other than they will with you. It can get really ugly. Don't do that for a lot of reasons. There's some resources. I'll put them in the links below. But don't worry, the dogs are side characters, so none of that fucking matters. Page 60, iconic line. I don't lie. Libby lied. Yeah, great, good. They're getting one dinner at his place, and now they're back together. Question mark, exclamation point, not certain what happened, but they are seeming to appear as an item now. Libby and the dogs are going for a walk the next day, and we find out that Pablo Rios has died. Who is that? We've never heard of him before. Great question. He's an employee at the ranch. He's actually a long-term employee, and so everybody's very sad about it. He died being trampled by an untamed stallion. What's going to happen to the stallion? That's for law enforcement to decide, I suppose, and I don't think we ever get a clear answer on if that horse is killed or not. Page 124, first hookup, post-high school. My notes say that I said, no, out loud, secondhand embarrassment so bad I had to close the book. Happened again while writing the script. Now I shall read it for you. I don't know if that's the best idea, but alright, let's do it. It's just not well done. It's not well done. And Pablo Rios was dead. He lowered his gaze, not trusting himself to speak, not wanting Libby to see what was in his eyes. She rounded the table, pushing the chair aside, and put her arms around him. Her eyes widened when she felt his erection, and fetching pink color bloomed in her cheeks. "Yikes," she said. "Maybe not the time to say yikes, girly pop." Tate chuckled. "Yikes? I'd forgotten how big you get oh, why do I even try to talk?" Her face was on fire now. So was his body. Her eyes misted over. Why were her eyes misting over? Is she scared? I'm confused. "What are we doing?" she asked in a near whisper. "Getting ready to make love," Tate suggested hopefully. "Don't call it that, Tate. Don't call it that." "It scares me." "Making love?" "No. How much I want it. How much I want you." It's happening again. Ah! Tate felt as though he'd been underwater too long. They'd had great sex as kids, but they weren't kids anymore. I don't know, it's something about hearing about the sex life and referring to them as kids. It's uncomfy. It's not great. What if it was too soon? What if it was too late? What if it wasn't as good as before? What if it was better? Well, one would hope it would be better than when you were children, considering you just said that. Tate kissed her harder, cupped her perfect little rear end in his hands. This is just me. I hate perfect little noun. For erotic fiction, for any type of fiction, to describe specifically women's bodies. It disturbs me in a way I can't put into words. If anybody else can, the comments are your oyster. Please put it into words for me. Tate McKettrick was a Texas boy, raised right. If Libby didn't want to make love, that would be a disappointment, but of course he wasn't going to force the issue. That's great. Consent's good. Note here, that he's saying no means no. Just as he was about to lower her sideways onto the bed, push the dress up around her waist, and do what came naturally. If you're saying do what came naturally, I don't think you're allowed to write sex scenes. I think your vocabulary is not up to the task of what I, as an audience, require. So after they do this, they have a date night again, where we find out that he loves her, and then 2 pages later, we find out she loves him. So at least the feeling's mutual, but so did they, I guess they didn't stop loving each other, and that's valid. I can understand that, but why did it take us 100.5 pages to realize that? Well, okay, the next date night starts as cuddles, and then, great, we have more cringe to go through. Page 129. "I love you," he wanted to say, but it was too soon for that too, so he simply lay there and let Libby hold him, just because. Okay, that's the end of one chapter. This is the start of the next. The shift happened between one heartbeat and the next. Lying there on her bed facing Tate, Libby felt her heart soar and then plummet, as though she were riding some cosmic roller coaster. She'd loved this man since he was a boy and she was a little girl, barely older than Audrey and Ava were now. Weird to talk about his 6-year-old daughters right now, but okay. So she starts crying, thinking about how much love she has for this man and how they've changed and grown through their adult life. And then says, Libby shook her head. Even if she hadn't been afraid to tell him what she was feeling, she wouldn't have known how to put it into words. It was as though she'd died and then been resurrected as a different woman with a new soul. Huh? And this new soul wants to fuck? Former Libby, practical and wary, emotionally bruised and battered, had stopped him from making love to her for a lot of good reasons. The new one, the one born in the last 20 seconds, wanted him with an incomprehensible ferocity, an instinctual craving that would not be refused, delayed, or modified. So then they go ahead and fuck about it. Huh? This is our first actual sex scene. Vocabulary has not upped for this moment, in case you were wondering. And I've got a lot of thoughts. About this. If I were to say the words to you, ghost horse made of fire, what would you think that was describing? Would it be an orgasm? Because that's not where my mind goes. But if you went there, you are on the same pages as Linda Leal Miller, because that's where her mind goes when describing orgasms. I don't know how. I don't know what that's supposed to mean or feel like, But that's where we are. Sorry, future editing Hannah, I just fucking whacked the shit out of that mic. When he nuzzled through and took her into his mouth, she instantly splintered, shouting now, riding a ghost horse made of fire. The long climax convulsed her time and again, drove the breath from her lungs and melted her very bones, leaving her limp in its aftermath. She couldn't see or hear or speak, and she could only feel. I need you to know. Here's my journal entry from that moment. Here's the drawing that Jake created of what we think that moment's supposed to mean, or a visual representation of that moment. It is the most iconic scene in this entire book. A ghost horse made of fire. I'll give her that. You know what? I shit all over her vocabulary earlier. That's iconic. I quote it a lot. I've said it a lot in the last few months. Timeline on this book, by the way, 23 minutes into recording. I should have done this way at the top. Chloe lent me this book almost a year ago, and I said, maybe even longer than a year ago, and I said I would do it. I finally read this book in March of this year, and it is now August when I'm recording. When will it be edited? When will it be edited? Who's to say? Same scene. Next bit I want to go over. These are my rapid fire notes from when I originally read it. Not going to stop until it's over? ? Horse sex is hot? ? Pregnancy thoughts, lol. Sex changed her as a woman. This is when I realized that I think this is a breeding kink. The amount of times they talk about put a baby inside of me, how she could get pregnant, the flags are flagging. I'm aware of it. This is also when we find out, and I don't know how, past Hannah did not take good enough notes, that Austin did not sleep with Cheryl. She just presented herself to him naked in his bed one night. So that was a lie she told Tate about his brother. Another banger on page 141. He's drunk, Austin confided drunkenly. Yeah, King, I get it. I get it. Fact check, we're still in the same 1 week period of him being with his girls. This is the same 1 week of their birthday party. All of this has happened in 1 week. And he's still debating if he wants to let them do the beauty pageant. And now it's Cheryl's week for the girls, finally. She pretends to be intoxicated on the phone, so Tate will come over to check on her and the kids. Then she calls the cops feeling threatened, and she tries to get him in bed with her with wine and a nightgown. Fuck, Cheryl, you're a lawyer. Behave like a fucking adult. This is when I realized there's too much plot for this to be smut, and it is poorly written romance with a couple sex scenes. This was around the time. 1 week later, now we're really jumping. Tate did not call Libby. Page 207. A week had passed since his funeral, and during that time, Tate McKettrick hadn't called once. Maybe, Libby thought, watching as a rare and badly needed rain pelted the road out in front of Perkup. Her dad had been right in years past when he used to moralize that there wasn't any point in buying the cow when you could get the milk for free. What kind of sex shame is this? What? Libby sighed. A few weeks ago, she'd bitten the bullet and called Doc Pollock, asked for a prescription for birth control pills, which she'd filled at Walmart, her cheeks burning with mortification. Girlie, it's birth control. Get that shit. No shame, no shame. Why do you feel so much shame, girlie? Oh, because you're in the South, of course. Of course. She knew every single person in Blue River, and they knew her, and it was just her luck that Ellie Newton, her high school nemesis, happened to be clerking in the pharmacy that day. A brief scenario unfolded on the screen in Libby's mind, in which Ellie switched on a microphone and announced to the whole store that, in case they hadn't heard, Libby Remington was catting around with Tate McKettrick again, and after he'd made a fool of her in front of the whole county, too, throwing her over for that fancy woman he'd met in Austin. It ain't that deep, girly pop. Very aware about the ecological impacts of our choices, but we're not body and sex positive? What? Great, next question. What year is this? Only our rich bitches have cell phones. Everybody else drops by or calls home phone. This is also outdated ideas about sex, but global warming is, we are aware of it. This is when I started texting people to be like, hey, you were more cognizant around 2010. Who all had a cell phone? Because right now, the only person that does is the rich bitch in here. But that changes. A 276 Paige gets a cell phone, her sister. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the sister. And then on 310, everybody has a cell except Libby. So I kind of feel like this was written over the course of a while, and a lot was changing in the author's world. And she was like, oh, we'll just throw them in. People won't notice. It's fine. We'll just throw them in for the second half. It's fine. Tate drops by Libby's house. She gets into the truck, and he sees her sweet little ass in action. You guys already know what I'm going to say. We're finally having a define the relationship talk. And he says it all depends on Libby because Libby has to forgive him. And then she says, if you're talking about that fling with Cheryl, I forgave you for that a long time ago. Fling? Sis, they got married and had 2 kids. That's not a fling. That's pretty committed, in my opinion. Tate's decided to move into Pablo's home and remodel it. He's kind of having a life crisis. He wants to live in a normal-sized home, doing normal man jobs, working for real in his life. That's kind of what he says, because he feels like he's not a normal man. Interesting. Cheryl calls Tate. The ex-wife calls Tate from New York in the middle of the night. She's taken the girls there so that she can interview for a law. Confused. She's taken the girls there, but one of them wants to come back in the morning. So she wants to move there to practice law, which means Tate is getting full custody of the girls. Barely 7 at the time, Libby wouldn't have been able to articulate the feeling then, except to say it was like remembering without the actual memories. Heck, she wasn't sure she could articulate it now, and she was all grown up. Aw, she's talking about loving him? She's saying lightning had already struck for her? Love? Lust? Some combination of the two? Who knew? You're talking about the way you felt with him when you were 7? Or the way you feel now? Because the way this is written reads like you're talking about when you were 7, Libby. I'm concerned. So Marva, which is Libby's mom, drives Julie's car into the perk-up. And so she's kind of having a life crisis of like, I don't have any more money. What am I supposed to do? My coffee shop's gone. That's rough. But then in the 300 pages, Tate offers her marriage? ? He definitely asked her to move in with him. And it's been like 3 weeks of them dating. And then the Remington family has a meeting where Marva reveals she's flying out in the morning to go back to Costa Rica with her husband. Surprise, she has a husband. We didn't know that. And she's giving the girls the money from their dad's life insurance. So Tate leaves to give Libby space to figure out what to do with the money, but Libby's convinced she's dumped. Classic misunderstanding, miscommunication trope. Cheryl's already started canceling her weekend trips to see the girls. The stallion's still being held in a pen until animal control law enforcement decides if it lives. A puppy runs into the pen. Ava follows, one of the daughter follows, and Libby follows. The horse runs out of the pen when giving the chance. Everybody's safe. I think that was supposed to be a climax. They love each other. They fuck in the shower. He proposes in the shower, and she says yes, and she wants a New Year's Eve wedding. That can't be right. That can't be right. 3:56. They begin to kiss. They undress each other. Water from the big brass shower head poured down over both of them, washing away the worst of the dust. Blah, 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 blah. Tate teased Libby to the absolute verge of climax. Blah, 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 blah. Will you marry me, Libby? Tate asked, both of them kneeling under the fall of water. Please. She nodded, traced his jaw with the tip of one finger, tasted his mouth. Yes, I want a big wedding on New Year's Eve. Okay. This is how much of the book we have left. This is how we're trying to end this. So now it's September. I think this is functioning as an epilogue. Audrey loses the beauty pageant. Cheryl is not there. Libby and Cheryl are now emailing about the girls. Audrey and Ava want to do a rodeo next. The end. The next book's Garrett in June 2010. Garrett and Julie. Who could have seen that coming? Not I. Okay, well, I think that was it. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does a falling tree make a sound? If a Hannah's goofy and no one's there to hear it, does a Hannah do a goofy? Is Hannah goofy? And I think that's really what I want to focus on today. I have all of this goofy guy energy, and I'm just sitting alone in my room. Somebody needed to appreciate that. So I'm glad we've gotten this time together, I feel good about all the things that have come out of my mouth. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. For sure, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. For sure. Okay, well, guess I'm gonna go back to my room. You've gotta be kind to yourself. There you go, Hannah. Good job.